Who is Dwayne Morton? Well, for starters, he is the CEO of Show Up to Win and also a sports athletes coach. Stick around for the next 30 to 45 minutes and learn more about this unique character. Hi, and welcome to the 182nd episode of Open Up. My name is Dipchand Ramcharitar, and I'm the Outreach and Development Coordinator at Voice of Men 360. Voice of Men 360 is a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 and based in London, Ontario, Canada. It was born out of seeing a tremendous need to step up and provide services to help support and overcome men and boys' life challenges. We are also part of International Men's Day. International Men's Day have been around for over 21 years and so far serving in over 90 countries around the world, joined together doing various activities in the interest of men and boys. They follow six pillars, which again is for the overall well being of men and boys, and we do likewise. Now, as I said, our guest is Dwayne Morton, but just before we get to him, I want to go through our disclaimer. We would like to remind you that Voice of Men 360's mission is always delivered with good faith towards peaceful harmony. The views and opinions expressed in today's episode are those of our speakers and do not necessarily represent Voice of Men 360. Our organization engages in discussion forums to offer inspiration and create awareness of the issues of men who wish to overcome their life challenges. We are not providing medical or therapeutic advice. Should you require that type of assistance, we recommend you contact a medical professional immediately. If you have any questions or concerns about today's episode or any Voice of Men 360 content, please email us at info@voiceofmen360.org. So let's dive right in and welcome Dwayne Morton to our program. Hi, Dwayne, welcome. And please introduce yourself, and I will read out the first question for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. You've been through some dramatic events in your life and have helped shape who you are today. Can you pick the most significant of those and say why you consider that to be life changing?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for the question.
Welcome.
Thank you for the listeners taking the time out of their day to come and listen to me and listen to the show. And thank you for having me. I just wanted to address that first.
Sure.
So as far as the traumatic, I would say the diagnosis would probably be number one. And I would say that it really shaped me into the human being and the man that I am today. Fortunately for me, things changed last year in March where I found out I was misdiagnosed. But the diagnosis part was a huge, huge part of my journey. It's very traumatic. Anybody who's gone through being diagnosed, definitely understands. It's almost like a prison sentence, and you start identifying with that, and that is also part of the reason that I built my Show Up to Win program, was to combat that identification,
Right.
but also to help combat the fact that people think that when they're diagnosed that they have to slow down, stop their life. And for me, I slowed down. I really did. I pretty much stopped. And so but I would say that would be the number one. The number two was the shooting. And the shooting, the reason I would put it number two is just that I only had to deal with it for 2 years. So I didn't get to they were both extremely traumatic, but they were different because I was a different place. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I know this must be painful for you to address, like repeat, we all have experienced things in our lives that we have to confront, and we should confront if possible. But it's not always very easy to talk about it, especially in an open air audience. So we certainly appreciate you open up to air whatever have been, so dramatic and traumatic to you.
Right. So absolutely. So I want to say something real quick to the listeners.
Sure.
So things changed for me about a couple of months ago. Just to kind of give you an idea, I I was going through a process of like everything happened to me, right? But it really didn't. And then I went to where, hey, these things happened for me because guess what? If I would have had a perfect life, I wouldn't be able to get here, and I wouldn't have these stories to tell either, right? But probably about 3 weeks ago, I
Yes.
understand that these things happened through me, and these things happened so I could serve, so I could facilitate um, my words to other people, so other people maybe have an easier time with dealing with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it certainly does. And again, I thank you for being able to express that on the program. So you've also spoken. We've chatted a bit before, and you've mentioned, this philosophy of the unshakable mindset. Can you say what that means to you, and how can men and boys develop that?
Yeah. So unshakable mindset is really what Show Up to Win is about. It's about being able to actually be in presence when you're doing things. Like, so if I'm going to get prepared for a basketball game, I need to do all of those steps to get prepared for a basketball game. So I've taken the things that I've done in athletics and I've applied those things in my life.
Right.
So Show Up to Win is the same thing as that unbreakable mindset, the unstoppable mindset. I'm sorry. The unstoppable mindset is I have these like checklist of things I do. Okay. So in the morning I wake up and there's these four things that I really, really hone in. Okay. The very first thing is I am extremely thankful that I woke up. So I thank God for that ability to be able to wake up. So
Right.
my number one step is gratitude. Okay.
Okay.
My number two step is I take time in my bed and I stretch. I've played a lot of basketball. I've had to make sure of like I've had some different injuries. So I want to make sure that I'm ready for the day. Okay. So self-care. The number three thing is I take these two large steps. Now, this is kind of a little different now for me because I've had knee surgery on both knees. So I really just want to check and make sure my knees are good. And so I put these two steps down. And so it's really how I attack the rest of the day. So left foot, right foot. Okay. So this is called Dwayne's daily plan of attack. And I do this every day. And then there's another step. So I take my philosophy of life is like a runner's mentality. No one runs looking back, correct? Like nobody sits there and runs back. No, we don't do that. We run, maybe take a glance. And so for me, if I'm paying too much attention to the past, then I'm going to be depressed. If I
Yes.
pay too much attention to my destination, even though I don't know my destination and I'm always looking, then I'm unable to be in the presence. The presence is the key factor of everything in life. Be in present. That's why it's called a gift. Okay. And so for the rest of the day, I'm looking at just going toward my direction of the destination that I'm applying to go to. Okay. I can't
Right.
see it. I don't know where it's at. And this other step is, I think, just as important as all the others. in this Dwayne's daily plan of attack, and it's being adaptable. Okay.
Right.
So as you're running, if you ever went running and there's things that happen that are on the road or on the track or whatever. So I call these potholes. This is life, right?
Right.
Okay. So all I do is I just swerve. I'm just moving left or right and I'm dodging potholes. So the things in life that are going to happen, they're going to happen.
Right.
You're going to lose the job. Your bill is going to come up. Situations happen, and they happen for a reason because they're learning lessons. And we have to understand that. And so all I'm trying to do is be adaptable to these things and just kind of swerve a little bit. But that's what life's about.
Exactly. Yeah. So you've let me see. I don't know if I missed any. You have a 4-step plan. You have gratitude, self-care, Dwayne's daily plan of attack. Looks like I missed one.
Okay, so it's being adaptable so it's
Okay.
4, but also it's the left foot, right foot. The left foot and the right foot is how you go throughout the day. So it's just being that unstoppable part of like, hey, I'm living in the present.
Right. And from your experience, you would think that for the men and boys out there especially, this would be a good way to start your day.
Absolutely. And it puts down those core principles that help you in the law of attraction, right? The gratitude, the self-care. I feel like the problem with most men and boys is we do not think about self-care. We're so much worried about others.
Yes.
Because that's part of the thing is we're supposed to be the person that's supposed to be like, oh, they've got it. Hey, they've got it. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. And here's the thing is at some point, and usually the people who really start understanding and really take self-care very seriously is because they usually had, say, a medical issue that came up, something traumatic came up, and they weren't able to fulfill the promises and the things that they were supposed to do to their family.
Been there, done that. I hear you. Excellent. The next question is a 2-part question, so I'll go with the first part first. How do you think traditional notions of masculinity can hinder men's ability to open up and be vulnerable? I think you touched on that just now.
Yeah. I think that there's a stigma. It's actually unfair, but it's been like that for thousands and thousands of years, right? It's always happened. It's thousands and thousands of years. And so here's the thing is most men in the past in like different civilizations, they were warriors, hunters, or gatherers, correct? That's what most people think about. But there was also the medicine man, the healers, and the leaders. So you can use your brain too. That's the whole thing. I don't understand why it's always has to be like where you have to be this aggressive person. You don't have to be aggressive at all. You can be strategic and do the same thing as someone who is aggressive. Like I'm aggressive in my strategy all the time.
Yeah, I think it's a stigma we're cursed with, but it's part of I guess being a man. So knowing this, how would you encourage men and boys to embrace vulnerability and emotional expression?
Wow. Okay. So this is an amazing question. I think that there's some men that can deal with some things differently. There are some men who are like me, who are more sensitive, that are, whether you want to go by horoscopes or you want to go by anything, like there's just difference of people. It's just like as there is women, there's different types. And so what we need to realize is that as a human being, I need to be myself. If I cannot be myself, I'm in the wrong place. So that's where you're able to stretch your vulnerability, but also have those conversations where you feel like, hey, I know this person and I feel this way. I believe this. And then like I have friends that I've had friends for long seasons, for lifetime, and I've had friends for short seasons and just like, maybe 4 or 5 seasons.
Right.
It That's because either they align with me or they do not align with me. And when you start really understanding what alignment is, that's when, those things happen, and either they attract more of the same person or they attract less. And so when they start attracting less, then you realize, oh, maybe I do not need this.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing with men generally is, as you mentioned earlier, um, we're innately, I don't know if you can say blessed or cursed with this, you know, ability or responsibility rather to carry that load and not show emotion, a grin and bear it kind of thing. And even though there seems to be more encouragement out there today to open up, show your vulnerable side, um, the problem with that is when you do, you look upon as a weakling. So you're caught between a rock and a hard place. So, it's, I think awareness might be a good start, educating the public on that men are human beings. And part of being a human being is you have an emotional, spiritual, it's not just a physical side to yourself. So that's a good starting point, I would think, as well.
Yeah. I mean, so there's no difference between a single mom and a single dad. They both are going through the same struggle. I don't
Right.
understand why we're like picking one side or picking the other side. They're both struggling, and they're
Right.
also taking on responsibility of a small child. To
Yes.
me, to me, that is like the most honorable thing you can do, is to do stuff for the good of a small child
Yeah.
or a child in general.
Yeah. I would say that's one of the major responsibility of any adult, to raise the next generation to become, valuable and coherent and contributing members of society.
Right.
So
So,
yeah,
as you say this, I just want to say, like, when I was diagnosed at 29, I because I did not want to have other people carry my burden,
yeah,
I did not go and have a wife and have a family.
okay,
So it's extremely important that, like, the people who or have that ability are able to understand that. Lucky for me is I'm healthy now. Like, I can go have a family now.
right,
That has not That's probably been one of the biggest things that I feel like has the most impact for me out of this whole ordeal, is like, I can go ahead and now be a great dad. I'm a great uncle to my 2 nieces, but I can go and be a great dad. Whether
yeah,
I go adopt, whether my wife has kids already in place, it doesn't matter, as long as I accept that role.
absolutely. I think that's a good approach to the situation. And again, as adults, we have that humongous responsibility on our shoulders. Now, I know you're an international basketball player, and obviously you've been exposed to a lot of important people around the world in your tenure as a player, and even after that, I'm sure you've been in contact with a lot of popular and important people. So, who were some of the key mentors of role models in your life, and how did they impact your journey?
Okay, so I only played one season of basketball overseas. Like, I was on
Okay,
a mission trip. Came home. I signed with an agent. I looked at going to Australia, some other places. Um, so I know there's like a couple other Dwayne Mortons that play basketball. So sometimes those things get kind of mixed up.
right,
I did not make it NBA. I hit my ceiling. I knew where I was.
right,
So I just want to make that point.
okay,
Role models. Wow. So I had different role models and mentors in different aspects. So my grandfather, who I just call, who's my grandpa. Like, so I'll try not to tear up on this. Is like, that's my hero. Like, he was the guy who on Friday nights I would spend the night over there and play cards with. And me and him would just talk and talk and talk and have all kinds of conversations. So for my family was my grandpa. Uh, for sports, I had different types of mentors. I had really good coaches. I had not so good coaches, but I had people who poured into me, and I took different things from them. And so I'm not really going to name a basketball coach, but like I have been super blessed with mentors in business. One of
Okay.
my friends was mentored by Jim Rohn, and he poured into me and poured into me. And if I call him right now, he'll answer the phone. And then I have mentors that like just came through this just recently. And so I am really good friends with a lady named Victoria Rader, who
Right.
has she's the owner of You to Shine, which is a quantum healing group. And if you've never experienced quantum healing, it's one of the most amazing things I've ever had. And so, but then also I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. So, you know, Jesus Christ is one of the greatest role models and leaders that you could have. And so even I have friends who are atheists who actually read books about Jesus so they can be more Christ-like. And so there's more and more of these mentors. But I really wanted to so right now, who would be my number one mentor right now is Victoria Rader. Like
Okay.
I can call her right now. She'll pick up a phone and she'll pour into me and pour into me. And through this healing process, she has probably helped me heal more in a shorter period because she has just cared for me by love and grace. And I feel like that is the number one thing with most mentors. When they have a student and they're able to have that type of relationship, I believe that's like the A plus elite level.
Absolutely. So it sounds like that's somebody you can truly lean on. And speaking of that quantum thing you mentioned, coincidentally, I only started this week to. I saw some prompt videos on YouTube, so I got a little interested, a little curious. So I only started to look at it a couple of days ago.
Wow.
So I'm gonna explore it some more and see where it leads.
Yeah. So it's what it is the same thing as when I shoot a basketball. Okay. Like how I raise my arm and I guide the ball.
Yes.
It's when the basketball spins.
Okay.
How it goes to the air, how it trajectory, all that stuff. I pushed it through it, right?
Okay.
And so it's quantum healing is very similar to that aspect.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a look from what the little I've seen so far that it's worth the effort exploring a bit more. So I'm going to definitely do that. So I want to ask you if you can share any insights on how men can balance their personal and professional responsibilities while staying true to their values and passions.
I think your value and passion should already be aligned with your work and your personal life already. Like I'm already aligned with everything I do. If I'm
Right.
out of a line, one of those things will go away. But guess what? I had the choice to either be aligned, and I feel like you already know if you're aligned with it. I feel a lot of people take a lot of things just because it helps their situation for the right now, but the right now isn't what's great for the long term. And
Right.
I can kind of express a little bit more if you want. Is if
Sure,
I
go for it.
go and okay, if I go and I take a job for money purposes only,
Right.
I'm not aligned. But if I take a job that I really, really want because I have a passion for it and I can make more money, that's different. If I'm doing the same thing that I love, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. So these things sort of fall into place, and if one goes out of alignment, then you're sort of screwed in a way. You got to
Yeah,
have
absolutely.
every ducks in a row.
Absolutely. If you're not in line, something will happen to get you back in alignment. It's the same thing as a car. Okay, so a car. What happens when the tires get out of alignment? You can't stay straight. The car
Yeah.
drifts, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. What do you it's I think sometimes we just need to have a little bit more common sense. And if we have more common sense and we simplify things, helps so much more.
Yeah. One of the problems with men and boys today, there is a certain degree of apathy. A lot of men, young men especially, are sort of giving up on life, and they're just some of them are just playing video games and just looking to hang out with friends. And I'm not so much saying this as a criticism; I'm just as an observation. So, having observed that, which is a background to the next question, what advice would you give to men and boys who are struggling to find their purpose or direction in life?
Great question.
Thank
So
you.
there's two things. What are they passionate about? What do they care about? Like just a little bit. And then kind of go in that direction and then it moves over. Everything kind of just moves over. But you have to choose a direction to go in. The other thing is like, what did we enjoy? Like passion and enjoyment is two different things to me.
Right.
Passion is something that just drives me. Like for basketball, I was 4 years old and shooting at a 10-foot rim. I would
Oh, wow.
I would get up every day and I would shoot a basketball that I couldn't even hit the net on. And so my goal was to get the net, to get the rim, and then if I'm lucky, it might go in. And then it was like, then when it started going in more, well, I wanted to go in more. And so it's this inspiration, not motivation. Motivation is probably, I feel like motivation is so short term that you got to find something within. And it's the same thing through that aspect is like, does that make sense? Like for them to find something that inspires them.
Yeah.
And so if they're into video games and they're the best video gamer, like there's a way to get paid for that. There's a way to get on Twitch. Like I grew up video games. Like I have a PS5 that I haven't turned on since July, but it's like I could if I wanted to. So I feel like us, as you said, the judgment of what people would do, that needs to go away. Like
for sure.
Whoever thought that we should judge, like, can we just like take that person out on the street and like stone them? I mean, not literally, but I'm just saying, like,
I get your point.
Who are they to judge, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Which leads me to the next question. How do you think men can effectively mentor and support each other, particularly in areas such as the mental health and personal growth?
Through great organizations like this, through Boys and Girls Club, through all these things that are already kind of in place, but people aren't utilizing correctly.
Right.
And then, of course, we have corruption. That's going to happen with anything. If someone's going to try to take advantage of it, correct?
True.
And so, but our job is to be able and be willing. If we're not willing to show up, and like my program is called Show Up to Win, because I tell people like show up with intention.
Right.
If I was a big brother in an organization, I would show up with the intention to make that kid's life better and to instill something in him that I wish that someone had instilled in me when I was his age.
Right.
Like
for sure.
It's that circle. It's that give and receive. I feel like there's so many programs that have it all, but somehow the corruption part kind of like messes it up. And it's a beautiful program, and we just need to utilize those correctly.
For sure. We actually had a therapist, a very seasoned therapist, a while back on one of our programs. And he said, like, when he spoke to men individually, they sort of clam up. They don't readily open. But he said when he had group therapy, like he had a bunch of guys, like sort of a brotherhood, and one guy started speaking up, then they all came forward and expressed themselves. much more readily and openly. So that's another area that people can explore.
Group. I'm a wholeheartedly believe in group work. Like
Right.
anytime you can get more than one person together, it goes better rather than one person having to always carry the load. So one thing I tell people is all the time, I have people who support me, like truly, truly support me. And this is probably the most I've ever had in my life. So I look at myself as an iron beam. I'm holding the weight of whatever I'm holding onto, right?
Right.
But you have people who say they support you and they're really just kind of leaning on your iron beam, but they're wooden twigs. And so if you go and you like make room, take away the wooden twigs, you'll be surprised the iron beams that come around and come and support you. And so when real friends show up, and so we can support each other in different ways. And the whole thing is like wholeheartedly support. Like I support people like how I want to be supported. Again, it goes back to that common sense part. Like I do unto others as I want others to do unto me. It's extremely a simple aspect that most people just don't apply to their life.
Absolutely. And this has been so far a fascinating conversation. We are so thrilled to have you with us. What final words of wisdom or encouragement would you like to share with our audience today?
So you can be anything you want. I actually had a guy who was a basketball coach who poured this into me, and it made such a huge impact.
Yeah.
You can either believe you can or you can't. Either way, you're correct.
Correct. I think it was Henry Ford who said that.
It is Henry Ford. At that time, I didn't know that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most profound thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah. It's so simple, but so effective and true.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have one last question, but before I get to it, I want to just run out some information about our organization. There are no limitations to gender, age, nationality, or ethnic group. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows. If you want to be a guest on any of our shows or willing to be part of our organization and help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Our phone number is 226 289 8784. Email address info@voiceofmen360.org. Website www.voiceofmen360.org. And we're on pretty much all social media. We have a Facebook group page. Please join us and see our daily activities and invite your friends as well. Other social media platforms we're on: Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Please help us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Voice of Men 360. We'd really appreciate that. Well, we've come to the end of our program. And Dwayne, just if you can let our audience or anyone else for that matter know, how would they continue to follow your work and stay updated on your latest projects and initiatives?
Yeah, so for me, is the best place to find me is either on Facebook, but with me getting ready to launch my own signature program here on the 1st of February, it's called Show Up to Win. It'll be on showuptowin.com. But if you go to showuptowin.info, and there will be a contact information that you can put in. And so it's show up with the number 2. Okay. And so what I did is I created the program that I was looking for and I needed, and it wasn't there. So I decided to build it. I also decided, hey, I needed a community to keep me consistent.
Right.
If I create this community, I can help the community stay consistent. So for me, it was a way of being extremely giving, but also knowing that like I need the self-care and I need the accountability of having all these people that are rallying behind me.
Okay, well, we certainly appreciate that. And for the people out there, please go to Show Up to Win. That's Show Up the number 2 win .info, and support Dwayne as much as you can. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been having such a fascinating conversation with Dwayne Morton. Time has run out on us, but we wish we could have stayed some time more and spent some time more with him. We really appreciate your time, Dwayne. It's been really good of you. It's been such an inspirational and meaningful session. So thank you again. Thanks to Sivam. He's our president. He's behind the controls. He's the guy who's running the show. And to all of you out there who joined us today, we really appreciate your time. Thanks to everyone out there, and have a good evening. Bye now.